Outgoing US President Donald Trump says that he'll not be attending the inauguration of President-elect Joe Biden on January the 20th. His refusal to attend comes just hours after he had tweeted a video committing to a peaceful transition of power following the violence on Capitol Hill on Wednesday. Amid calls for his impeachment, senior Democrats in the U.S. Congress say that they could start impeachment proceedings against Trump by next week if his cabinet does not remove him using the 25th Amendment of the Constitution. Meanwhile, Speaker of the House, U.S. House of Representatives, Nancy Pelosi, has urged U.S. military officials to discuss precautions to prevent him from starting a war, as current President Trump still holds the authority to order the use of the country's nuclear weapons. In a letter to fellow lawmakers, Pelosi said that Trump could not be more dangerous and everything must be done to protect the nation. For more on this story, we're now joined via Skype by United States political strategist and consultant Derrick Plummer. Derrick, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. It's been quite an incredible week to observe what's played out in the United States. And I just wonder, as you've had time to reflect now since Wednesday, what are your thoughts? How do you make sense of what you saw this week?
Yeah, first of all, it's great to be with you again. And I'm sorry that we have to be talking with each other under these particular circumstances. What I would say, though, is that while it wasn't inevitable that we would see the type of violence and the assault on our democracy that we saw on Wednesday, it was foreseeable. President Trump and his GOP enablers have really tried to sow dissension, and distrust in our democracy, in the rule of law. And what we saw were terrorists, to be perfectly honest with you, seditionists, people who, went to the seat of our democracy, desecrated it, disrespected it, and undermined who we are as Americans. And I want to make sure that I convey to your viewers that that is not who we are as Americans. They do not reflect who we are. Yes, we have disagreements, but what they reflect is the worst of, I think, those who profess to care about democracy, because they don't. They did not. And what they did was shameful and horrendous. And, look, I worked in the U.S. Capitol. I walked those hallowed halls. I know how sacred that place is in terms of our republic. And it was absolutely devastating and sad to see that happen, especially as a result of the reckless and arguably treacherous behavior of the President of the United States.
Let's talk about that because, a lot of people are pointing fingers at him, but is it clear that there was cause and effect, that he said something and that caused ultimately the deaths of 5 people?
I think there's a very clear cause and effect. And this is not just something that happened on Wednesday when he did actually tell his supporters that they should march down and essentially give, those legislators who were doing their job hell. And he said, we have to show them that we are strong and we are tough, and I'm gonna march down there with you. And the reality is that he's a coward. He didn't, but he definitely incited, I think, those his supporters. But he didn't just do it just in that moment. He did it when he lost the election, a free and fair election, a month and a half ago now, almost 2 months ago. And his sowing distrust in the media and in our institutions and our democracy were things that he's been doing, honestly, for the last 5 years. And so, yes, I think he has a significant role to play. I would argue that there are those Republicans like Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz that are also responsible because, again, their irresponsibility helped to sow distrust in our democracy, which was not only unfounded, but was really a disgrace to those who have gone before us.
70+ million people voted for Donald Trump. Do you think that there are many Republicans who watched the events of Wednesday that were thinking, you know, perhaps things have gone too far? This is not our Republican Party.
I would hope so. You know, look, studies have shown that those who identify as Republicans have, that number has decreased significantly. But yeah, that's what I hope. And I think it's also very, you know, we have to be fair that those individuals who disgraced our democracy is a very, very, very small number of people here in the U.S. I think the vast majority of Americans are decent, good people, but our democracy flourishes, and our democracy has continued to flourish because people of goodwill have generally done the right thing, and democracies are fragile. They're fragile. And the reality is that a very, very small sect of individuals, thugs, as President-elect Biden has called them, terrorists, those who essentially try to, you know, establish a coup here in the U.S. failed. But I also would say that, you know, there's 81 million or so Americans that voted Donald Trump out. And the majority of Americans have said that this is not the country that we are. This is not who we want to be. And that is not the type of leadership that we need in the U.S. and hopefully in the world.
All right. We'll talk about the soul of America going forward just now. But still, with what happened on Capitol Hill, it's incredible for us to think that a group of people could get so far as to scale fences, get into a building that had the vice president of the United States. And I ask this because we don't know who could have been using this protest for their own ends. You never know who else could have been there who had a gripe against America generally and sort of hid underneath this crowd. It's quite incredible to believe that this could have happened security-wise.
It is incredible. And as I said earlier, I worked at the Capitol. I worked at the Democratic National Committee, which is about 2 blocks away. The security around there, especially when members of Congress are present, is significant. And so for those terrorists, to be honest with you, who were able to essentially walk right in, there's images of Capitol Hill police moving those barriers and taking selfies. You know, it's very, very troubling. I imagine that there will be a number of hearings because this cannot happen at the seat of our democracy. We've already seen the Capitol Hill, you know, the Capitol Hill Police Department, I think, is responsible for about 60, 70 or so acres around the Capitol. They have 2,200 police officers. In Minneapolis, they have like 500, maybe 700 police officers for an entire city. So we had the force there. Why it wasn't deployed effectively, knowing that President Trump was inciting his supporters to come and to the Capitol, is mind-boggling.
Do you think that it could have been deliberate, that they were deliberately understaffed, deliberately unprepared, so that these people could have come through? Because it's hard to imagine that without someone deliberately allowing this to happen, that it could happen, given the number of people inside Congress and who they were.
And to be fair, I don't know. You know, again, I imagine there's going to be investigations into it. What we do know was deliberate was when they did call for the National Guard to come in D.C., because it's different than a state. The mayor has to request assistance. She can't just call in the National Guard. And we now know that Donald Trump rejected bringing in the National Guard initially. And it was Mike Pence who forced the DOD to do the right thing by sending in the National Guard. And so, look, I imagine that there's going to be a number of investigations. I imagine that there will be people who will be held accountable. People should be held accountable for the gross negligence in terms of security, the gross negligence in terms of inciting these terrorists, to essentially try to incite a coup here in the U.S.
We know that America has had problems even before Donald Trump, but do you think that this administration has flushed out some of those issues and they've come to the fore a bit more?
To your point, yes. America has had considerable issues since its founding, since before its founding. My ancestors, many who look like me, in 1619, with the slavery coming here to the U.S., like problems of the U.S. have been around for a really, really long time. But what I would say is that, and I said this earlier, part of what has made our democracy work, even when we have had significant disagreements, right? We had a civil war because there were those who wanted to see slavery prevail. But the last time we had people, essentially attacking the Capitol was in 1814 as part of the War of 1812, when it was the British. It didn't happen within, it happened without. And so I say all that to say, what we've seen from President Trump is a level of not only irresponsibility, but we've seen a deliberate, I think, undermining of our democracy, fanning the flames. He did it when he said there were good people on both sides in Charlotte. He's done it with his policies. He's done it with his rhetoric. He's done it with his undermining of the Fourth Estate, which is the media. And so, look, I think there are many who've been president of the United States who could have incited people to do violent things against this country. But we've generally elected people who of goodwill, who've done the right thing. Donald Trump is not and has not been the president that America needs or deserves.
And this week it was quite remarkable in the middle of this insurrection that he said, "Go home, we love you. We understand what you're going through." And then the next day, 2 days later, he came up with this tweet saying that you went too far. Again, confusing messages. And then today, of course, saying that I'm not going to go to the inauguration. Quite hard to process all of these moments.
I don't know if it's that difficult to process, because what we've seen from him throughout his presidency is he'll say something that's crazy or wrong, morally wrong, ethically wrong. He will then read a canned statement, which probably should have been what he said in the first place. And then the next day, when he's able to kind of speak his mind, he'll say something crazy again. So, I'm not terribly surprised, and it's not. I think we know who he is, and he is someone arguably who does not care about our democracy, does not care about our values, has not exhibited those values. Arguably, I think the better part of our values and who we are, and he has definitely been someone who has not tried to unite us as a country, but has from the very beginning tried to divide us, whether it's been along race, socioeconomic condition, geography, partisan positions. He has done everything that he within his power to sow that division. And again, it didn't start with him, but he has absolutely exploited it and continues to do so to this day.
A lot of people perhaps downplaying his tweet today about him not showing up to the inauguration on January the 20th. And this is the last time, I believe, 1869, and he'll be the fourth person in American history. I suppose the issue really is the symbolism, what it means for him not to show up. That is quite big, isn't it?
Yeah, it's and I've gone back and forth on this, right? So in our history, John Adams, when he lost to Thomas Jefferson, John Adams was the second president, Thomas Jefferson was the third president, and they were bitter rivals. But he still attended his inauguration because he believed in the not only the peaceful transfer of power, but in what that symbol of that transfer means. Donald Trump does not. He has not. And so I'm not surprised. But what I would also say, though, I don't know if it's appropriate for him to be there, right? I mean, look, there's talks of impeachment now. I don't think that's going to happen, but he does not. I don't think he deserves the privilege and the right to be in front of the American people to say that he represents us a day longer. To be perfectly honest with you, and on January 20th, we as a people, as a country, are moving forward. Donald Trump, in many ways, God willing, is in our past, but there's a lot of healing to be done. And he's demonstrated that he has no desire to be a part of that healing process.